Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. And again, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope you're having a fantastic day. Thanks for sticking around. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. Trump is actually defeating DeSantis in a recent poll. This is a Washington Examiner article. He's defeating him by a large margin. Don't be fooled, Trump's strong as ever, says top pollster. Washington Examiner, and one of the polls show him defeating DeSantis by 20+ points. Now, this is John and Jim McLaughlin, who run McLaughlin & Associates, recently released their poll that shows the former president ahead of DeSantis 48 to 2,325 point spread, just as popular as he was last month, and leaving Biden 48-45%. I agree with this. I think this is accurate. I'm not exactly sure if the spread is accurate. I think that he defeats DeSantis right now, in polls within the Republican Party. I had been saying that Trump was my number one choice. I had consistently stated that even though I've entertained DeSantis, so Trump was my number one choice. I do think DeSantis would do quite well. If, for some reason, God forbid, Trump did not want to run. And then it was DeSantis that ran against Biden, or I think Hillary Clinton will be the nominee in 2024. I know you might think I'm not, but I told everyone crypto would crash. It did. The market would tank, we'd have a recession. Did I say Clinton would lose to Trump back in the day in 2016? That happened. I told you that everything from the Steele dossier to the Mueller probe would lead to nothing. And it was a completely fabricated, absurd attempt at trying to take down Trump that would fail. So I'm not right about everything, but I'm right about a lot. Except we may have learned from 2016 and 2020. The support for Trump, like I've always stated, even though I'm open to DeSantis. He's always the number one choice for a number of reasons. He's proved himself. We had record low poverty under Trump 2019. His policies were very good. Even his detractors, many of his detractors who are honest, state that his policies and his economic and foreign policy, they were good. And he achieved great things. The Doha Agreement called for a May 1, 2021 withdrawal. Okay. When people say, well, he lifted up to Biden, they're just imbeciles who don't really understand, like what happened. He's the one who single-handedly reversed U.S. foreign policy Trump that would never have taken place. And Biden didn't even want to be dragged, his feet. He didn't want. He did not want to follow through with it. And it was a May 1, 2020 withdrawal. It wasn't waiting until the summer, until all chaos and mayhem, and we don't even know if Americans are left behind. And then we have inflation. They said Biden's administration said inflation is temporary. The Fed, Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, inflation is temporary. I was telling everybody inflation is gonna go through the roof. Oil and Gas Association shoot Biden's administration. They did so because his energy policies were terrible. He wanted to save the planet. And then he realized he couldn't save the planet and we needed fossil fuels, oil and gas. And so then he flooded the country full of, he released 200 million barrels of strategic the petroleum reserves. And then Trump's last year in office. Democrats gleefully tanked state economies. Then they gave stimulus checks. And then they said, oh, well, then you have some people who said, well, you bailed out Wall Street. Well, the quantitative easing was done because too big to fail. Banks could have gone bankrupt, or they could have they could have gone under. If you have an economy, a self-induced wound where you shut down economic activity, money, and lending would completely dry up business and commerce and industry, and the economy would have completely dry up, we'd enter a depression. If they didn't engage in quantitative easing. I'm not defending the Fed. I'm saying we should never have shut down the economy to begin with. So then they said, well, you gave Wall Street a bailout. Like, well, yeah, but Wall Street is directly correlated with Main Street, especially when you make stupid decisions, like tanking your economic system. And you didn't even have to do that. And Trump was against all of that. But again, his last year was commandeered. They say that he tried to come in there a limo. Another gossip. Nonsense. That's why they haven't indicted him. They won't indict him. If you look at Donald Trump's policies, it's fantastic. I will say this, if he doesn't, he can be ahead of Biden by 20 points, or ahead of DeSantis by 20 points. If he doesn't make peace with the Arizona and Georgia Republican parties, there's no way any Republican wins, and there's no way Trump wins in 24 if he doesn't make peace with the Arizona and Georgia Republican parties. They simply will not side with Trump for any major contest. They simply will not. We've seen that. We've seen that with senators, governors. And we've seen that for the presidential contest. That is something that Trump has to address his team, somebody he has to call up every single one of the GOP in Arizona and Georgia. He has to ask them, find a way, what can we do to form some kind of alliance or union? He has to be he has to be a part of the Republican National Committee process. Now I understand that you might say, well, that's not good. You shouldn't count out or capitulate. But I'm not talking about capitulating, I'm talking about politics, building some kind of, giving an olive branch, building some kind of communication, or some kind of alliance or union. I mean, they're only the Republican Party. It's only the possibility of a Republican president who will literally do everything that Republicans have been talking about. That's also a problem. They don't want to, Republicans in name only, don't want to do the things that they've promised. That's the problem. They worship media. That's the problem. The people like Kinzinger and Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, voted alongside Trump, voted for Trump's policies or executive orders 90% of the time in Congress, according to 538. The thing with the never Trump Republicans like Cheney and Kinzinger and the Georgia Republican Party and Arizona Republican parties, they don't like negative media coverage. And they would rather be showered with praise by all the essentially Democratic activists that worked in publications, local publications, than actually go to bat for Trump. They don't want the heat politically, or I should say in terms of public relations and media. That's a huge issue. But there's no stopping Trump. If he could just get the Republican Party on board with him. There's no stopping him. There's no stopping him. That's the issue. There is no stopping Trump if he can get the Republican Party on board. The problem is there are no never Biden's Vail rally around a housecat or a fern, or it doesn't matter Fetterman Biden, if they both were, pulled aside or pulled to the curb by law enforcement, say get stuff out of your car. And they did a sobriety test, they would never even pass the sobriety test. Okay. Pennsylvania's new Democratic senator sounds like he communicates like Yoda if Yoda was an alcoholic, so they don't even care. That was the worst debate of all time with us. I mean, no other country, no candidate in any other country would have won in that debate, no matter what. They wouldn't have won in America. You can do that because Democrats root that state Democratic parties are just as strong as the Democratic National Committee, maybe stronger even. And then, some significant news, Trump will essentially be Speaker of the House. You might say, well, that makes no sense, politically anti-McCarthy faction. TZ is a shadow speaker. And Yahoo News Republicans play chicken with Kevin McCarthy speakership. You have about 5 to 20 Republicans who will force McConnell at all times, even if he becomes Speaker of the House, which is likely they will force him at all times. And it's not just 5 to 1, it's a number of other Republicans who will always gravitate towards Trump's domestic economic and foreign policy. Thank God. Look at what's taking place. We'll just say, at the southern geographic region of our country, look at the atrocities taking place under the watch of morally superior liberal Democrats. AOC took a picture, looking at a chain link fence. You didn't see what she was looking at actually, behind the fence. But she's not taking any pictures now. And it's worse. It's the hypocrisy, it's worse. That is the hypocrisy. There are greater atrocities, greater dilemmas, more people losing their lives in not just that region of the country, throughout the country with crime and a whole bunch of problems in addition to real wages being down 7-8%. That's according to the Dallas Federal Reserve. So Trump's economic policies worked, his foreign policy was much better than we are, infinitely better anti-interventionist. Not the militants that our beloved president mashed potato brains is now, not negotiating and just sending tens of billions of dollars to fund a proxy battle. So we get another country to suffer on our behalf. That's because that's what's taking place. And I'm not saying you just go ahead and give the invading country everything they want, but you try to negotiate some kind of settlement. You try to stop the hostilities and the chaos, but they don't do that. These are the adults in charge. There's an invasion in Europe, the adults are in charge. We have real wages down 7 to 8%. The adults are in charge. All the good adults are so reasonable and rational. Donald Trump will essentially be the first Trump Republican Speaker of the House through McCarthy. So if, Kevin McCarthy he'll likely win, but it'll be a very difficult battle. You could possibly not win because it's so difficult for him. He's a political creature. Politics is very important to him. So he's not just going to be a never Trump Republican like Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell never had to deal with a populist movement within the Senate. Senate is a different ballgame. He gets to decide who gets money for funding. And he funded Murkowski, and he didn't find out I'm sultry and fun, Blake Masters. So he is not going to be there forever. Eventually he'll be replaced, but Mitch McConnell can just, undermine Trump and there are no repercussions. Kevin McCarthy cannot do so. Kevin McCarthy knows that the policies that are important to Trump, and Trump has the ear of Kevin McCarthy, or Kevin McCarthy has the ear of Trump. They're talking and speaking all the time. Trump is backing him for a reason. So is Margaret Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan. If you look at what's taking place, this is the first time you had a populist Republican Party or a populist within the Republican Party, the first time ever, or perhaps within decades and decades. Okay. You could say maybe Teddy Roosevelt you could go back in time, but this is the first time you had an actual populace that was against never under counterinsurgency conflicts against military quagmire. In the House of Representatives are going to impeach Biden as a no-brainer. It's very easy. Even The Atlantic, all these other publications know this. It's exactly what Trump wants. They think that Trump is a caricature of what they've made him out to be. Media Democrats, Hollywood, they don't really see who Trump is. They don't know who Trump is really. They see an obstacle, a threat, and they blame everything, and they throw everything including the kitchen sink at him, and they blame everything on him. Meanwhile, they cover up for Hunter obvious graft, Hillary private servers top secret, until Bernie Sanders is getting railroaded in his own political party. And everything is distorted and sensationalized with Trump. Everything is downplayed, like they say, with Biden and Democrats. Media is propping every single day with positive coverage, propping Biden up. We're going into a recession if this was Trump with a nuclear confrontation in Europe right now. It would be the end, it would be end of time scenario. It would be an end of the world scenario within newspapers and publications. They would blame him for everything and say, oh my God, that's gonna be the last Christmas we have. Oh my God, recession, another recession. We didn't have a recession and trembling. Yeah. We did was last year. Yes. Last year in office. Go ask Andrew Cuomo, when Whitmer and Pritzker and every Democratic governor why they gleefully tanked their state economies and refused to open up until go to coincidence until a Democrat was in office. And so we had record low in poverty in 2019. And record highs in household median income. We had the Doha Agreement that Biden completely botched. And you have to be a complete imbecile to be like, well, Trump left that for Biden. No, he didn't. You'd have to be a complete fool. What is he supposed to do? It's he loses, he leaves. Then they say, oh, he can't, he's barred from office because he wouldn't leave. He did leave. Or he didn't leave in the right way. And he caused the chaos that one day, he shouldn't have had those demonstrations. But he didn't. They're never gonna get him in a court of law because he didn't commit a crime. Hunter did. Joe almost certainly did. Selling out, altering U.S. foreign policy, let's say, because of money. You can prove that you can prove anything. The bad people testifying and money flow and emails, and a whole bunch of other information that the Bureau or other agencies might not be disclosing to the public. So this is not rocket science. The graft and felonies and criminal activity and prosecution could easily take place with Hunter or Hillary or with private servers. If Trump had a private server, he'd already be in prison now. Okay. Your private servers where half of the emails were deleted. You have no clue what they will just be saying, that Trump would be writing love letters to Putin with those emails that were deleted, but because it's a Democrat yogurt, no problem. And I think Hillary will be the nominee in 24 if they're voting for Biden or Fetterman. Don't worry, Hillary is easily she's better option than those two. so I think that Hillary Clinton will be a nominee in 24. But it's not hyperbole to say that Trump is the Speaker of the House. It really isn't. You might consider this an early Christmas present, or Hanukkah present, or, holiday New Year's present, holiday president. Trump a Speaker of the House, even with Asmacart with McCarthy. The thing with McCarthy is that you're afraid people are afraid, I was initially as well, that he'd be under Mitch McConnell. It's not the case. It is not the case at all. Okay, these are lifelong politicians. And it's different from McConnell because McConnell gains power from being a never-Trumper. McCarthy loses power and gains power from being an ally of Trump. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Open Source News. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.